what is the best triple multiclass in Baldur's Gate 3? So, last week I did my double multiclass thesis, right? You can see it here. And of course, a lot of comments was like, what about the triple multiclasses? Well, the math for that is obviously, there's a lot of triple multiclasses. So instead here, we're going to cover some of the best triple multiclasses. And I also want to explain a little bit of the math, how you actually do this thing, double multiclass. Because I saw a lot of comments saying that, oh, how many are there and so on, right? And I find actually this math very easy. I would argue it's very easy actually to calculate how many possible combination are there. So for that, then we go into the triple multiclass. If you like this video, remember to subscribe, comment below, help the channel. Of course, I like doing math or whatever, right? But you know, some fun stuff here. Because I guess I mentioned, I saw this question a lot, right? People saying that, okay, but how many classes are there? How many is a triple thing or whatever, right? But the math, I think, is fairly easy, right? So in the first case, you have multi-classes picking 2. So that's like 2 is picking 12. 12 picked by 2, whatever. It's called different things in combination mathematical. And the next thing is just 3 picking 12, right? Out of 12 options. And you can't pick the same thing twice. It's a different formula if you're calculating, like, you know, let's say you can re-pick it, right? So you can be like Barbarian, you know what I mean? Let's say you have 12 different balls, right? Like 1 red, 1 blue, and so on. If you pick up the red ball, you can then re-pick the red ball and put it back again. The different rules for, you know, if you keep the ball here. In this case, we can only pick Barbarian once. We can't be like 3 Barbarians. Like, you can't be multi, this doesn't make any sense. So the math is fairly easy. It's called Factorial math, okay? I can tell you the answer in my head, right? This is how easy this is. I mean generally. So it's 12 factorial, right? Divided by the n formula here. It's going to be 2 factorial, okay? Here's going to be 12 factorial inside of that, minus 2 factorial. Factory. So, this is going to be super to read, whatever. It probably looks super advanced or whatever, right? So let me explain what this thing means. So, if you read a number like that, this means 1x2, x3, okay? So, that's a factory of 3. That means it's basically 2 times 3, and it's 6. So that equals 6. Super easy. So up here then, you get an insanely high number, right? Because that's going to be like, you know, times 3, times 4, times 5, times 6, 7, 11, 12. But there is a trick. When you see this thing here, this kind of factor math, it would look better if I could do like a dash line or whatever. We get my points to be like this right now. As you can see, a trick here. So this is equals, if you remove this thing for another kind of rules, this equals 10, of course, you know. So if you rewrite that, right, it's saying this like that. And when you have a factor of anything divided by its factory of something else that is lower than this, so basically if you remove the 2 and you only have factory like that, right, so this is the value, this actually equals, let's see, this equals 12 times 11. So this is quite easy. The only thing you have to understand here is that you take 12 minus 10, right? That's 10, that's 2. So, you know, 12 minus 2, that's equal to, of course, 2, which means that if you take the first 2 items, right, in the list, or you call it the 12 list, which is 12 and 11. So you calculate that, that gives you 132, right? So we have 132 divided by 2. This, of course, is just 2, because that's just the same thing, right? Because it's just a 2. So that's what gives us this divided by 2 equals 66. So that's the answer, right? So to calculate how many triple multiclass are they, it's the exact same formula. It's not more complicated. So that is a low number, right? So it then becomes 12. This is, of course, the same thing. Here instead, it becomes 3 down there, right? And in the parentheses, you're going to have 12 minus 3 instead, which is 9. So you're going to have this thing, right? You know? And then the same rules apply, right? So you said you have 12 minus 3, that is 3, which means you have 12 times 11 times 10, and then you would have to calculate that. And we saw it earlier, this is 130, so it's that thing, right? We saw it earlier, there's 130, or 32, so that's the answer. And then what is down below, that's 6, right? But earlier, this thing equals 2 x3, also, you know, x1, but who cares about that? So that's 6, of course. So then you have 1,000, what that was, 1,320, right? Divided by 6 is equal to 220. Yeah. So then you have the answer, right? So that's basically it, right? It's very, very easy. And I'll give you one more trick here while I'm at it. We're talking about combinational math or whatever. I always like this thing a lot. Let me give you another math tip while we're at it. I also love this formula math. So you can always calculate if a number is divided by 3 or not. So look at this value here. I can tell you this is divided by 3, 100% sure. Because if you combine all the numbers, you summarize the numbers up there, right? This actually becomes 27. 27 is divided by 3. Becomes 9, right? And for that matter, everything that's divided by 9 is always divided by 3, right? Because 3 is a factor of 3 times 3, right? So everything you can divide by 9 is always divided by 3. And for example, everything that's divided by 6, right? 6 equals 2 and 3. And this is useful, especially if you write like twin. If you do like a prime sorter, right? If you want to sort like prime numbers or whatever, it's very useful because you can prove that literally every number is always divided by 3 by plussing 2 with it, or minus 2. So if you take like 50 and take plus 2, that is 52 of course, and that is 7, that's divided by 3, but 48 is divided by 3. So that's 12. So you can prove that every number in existence, if you plus with 2 or minus 2, you will always get a divided by 3. Except the only triple prime number, which is 3, 5, 7. That's the only triple prime number that exists, I believe. So you can kind of show it like that. But anyway, back to the ball skate. But yeah, the basic formula, right, is always something like this. Talking about combinational formulas, it's always something like this. So if you want to combine like how many, you have 5 kids and 5, how ways can you distribute presents, or how many ways can you pick a class or multiclass? There's always some kind of formula where you use factorial math. There's like 5 times 3 and so on. But it comes from this this mathematics that's like, well, this equals 9. So 9 is always a factor of 3, and so on. This is what it comes from, right? But anyway, back to Baldur's Gate 3, guys. But yeah, so the formula again then, very quickly. No, but it's the formula again. Very briefly here, right, is 12 factorially divided by 3 factorially, 9 factorially. That's the formula for a number of triple classes. And just to point out, right, depending on the rules here, it's very different. So this here doesn't care about order. So if you have order, it's more choices, right? So like this doesn't make a difference between Bard, Rogue, Bard. This doesn't care about that, right? Kind of like if you pull up a ball or a car or whatever, right? It's like, it doesn't care if you pull, the order doesn't matter here. And like I said earlier, this also, if this is correct formula, I hope so, this also doesn't care about re-picking, right, Because like I said, obviously if you can re-pick, it's not a formula, right? If you could pick Barbarian 3 times, then of course you have more options, right? Then you get way more options. But that's like a stupid thing because in this setting, and in most cases in reality, you rarely use that because let's say you calculate a card, right? It's like, I'm gonna pull a card of a card deck, right? A card deck is 52 cards, and then I'm pulling 1 card, it gets like that kind of thing, right? Because usually you don't pull like an ace and then you put it back in, right? Usually you pull, say pull full 4 cards, right? So then it becomes this thing, like that's usually how it works, right? So very, very rarely it's like, oh, you pull a card and you put it back again, Because normally if someone asks you like, oh, you're playing poker or whatever, right? How likely is the chance to, pull 2 aces, right? Okay, like 2 out of 52 factory. So then you get this, so that's like this formula, right? Then you get that formula, right? But anyway, back to Baldur's Gate. It crashed though. Yeah, it crashed, guys. Okay, seriously. So, crashed for me when I tried starting it. And yesterday it also crashed for me, briefly. But 2 days ago, I had a crash. And it's not just like shit. I like the game a lot, right? But Act 3 is really laggy. Honestly, it's buggy and so on. And that's why the reason why I didn't give it 10 out of 10, right? And this is not just... I'm just being straight up with you guys. The game crashed me yesterday. And they had to, reconfigure the whole game, 150 gig or whatever. It took I had to reinstall it. Yeah, it took an hour, total and something. So it genuinely just crashed for me right now making this video. Straight up crashed for me just now when I loaded my file again. Oh yeah, yesterday. Oh, damn it, yeah. This is part of the video, but yesterday, after I had reinstalled everything, I lost a few hours. It was really weird. So in my latest playthrough, I lost the last 3 or 4 saves. See what I mean? So I had 50 saves, right? But suddenly I only had 47 saves. So I had to like replay the last 1 or 2 hours on that playthrough. But honestly, I'm just whatever. I found this like tier calculator here, which I hope you guys can leave it instead, because yeah, I mean I don't know. I have to like reinstall the whole game. This is what you get, guys. Less flashy, but it kind of works. I leave a link below for it, but it's a pretty decent system, right? And honestly, it's probably easy here to use any, what's called talent calculator. I guess this is more like a class calculator, but whatever, right? A calculator is called to pick your class or whatever. So it's like we have rogue level 3, then we do range and so on, for example, right? I wouldn't really care too much about this stuff, like, oh, we're gonna min max, whatever, right? I think, again speaking, at 7 level, you're a rogue. We have a rogue, right? We're gonna obviously, maximize dex, right? 7, we're gonna do that thing. We're gonna have, we care about charisma, let's lower that. They have a point there. We're gonna do this thing, right? I don't feel that matters too much. Obviously, if we play a paladin, we're gonna maximize charisma, right? So, I don't think this is like super important. What can I tell you? You have your primary stat. I mean, rather, like I said, of course, in my previous videos, and this is, of course, going to be a huge thing in the video. So, okay, let's say that's that. Obviously, this thing here matters a lot, right? Your primary stat. Your primary stat is, of course, used like in multiclassing for 2 classes. Your primary stat is the main opinion how to build your triple class, right? Because even more so, when you're building a 3-class character, of course, those 3 classes, right, if they have the same primary stat, it's gonna be way easier. I mean, obviously, okay, yeah. So obviously, right. So, for example, if we have Dexterity, that's our main stat, right? And we're playing as the Rogue, obviously then we pick the Rainier, and then step in the Monk, right, That is a possible triple class. They all use Dexterity, right? I mean, it's obvious. If we play the Paladin, and play the Bard, it was 3 in the Warlock, right? We have 3 Charisma, you get my point. So, I mean, those are obvious. I mean, comment that later, but, I mean, clearly, the most straightforward triple classes are even more so, I would say, should have the same primary stat, right? Where in a double multiclassing, it's also, I keep saying it, but obviously as well, having the same primary stat is usually gonna be a pretty good multiclass, or an easier multiclass play, right? But even more so when you play triple class. Yeah, because then you even have less, even more spread out, right? But anyway, let's talk about like one of my favorites then. I was gonna say here, like, we don't really care too much about background, right? Yeah, we don't care too much about that. But certainly, for example, if you play Rogue, you obviously, you wanna be like criminal, so you get the deception, you can also be Urshi, so you get the hand. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? Yeah, like if you play that, if you play the Paladin, you probably want to be a noble, so you get persuasion. Persuasion is probably the best skill in the game, yeah, speaking. So much face rolling. What is it more? I think entertainer has performance. That's pretty good. Like, even point. This is like whatever. But obviously, this is not balanced at all. No, this is not balanced at all. For example, is that like which one has to like talking to animals? So on. This one is like pretty meh. This like you don't acolyte, I guess, for example. I'll say it here then. This is a general point for this game. This is triple classing. But for example, religion is way less valuable than persuasion and deception and so on. Insight is also less valuable. So this insight has definitely more valuable than religion though. But so there's clearly like some of these, like background skills are in this game not at all on the same value, right? So like history, religion, and so on, they have way less value. And I guess it's like a little bit of a legacy issue, right? From D&D, where just like in D&D, well, if you play basically if you play a certain campaign, religion might be, I guess, more or less useful, right? Depending on what the campaign is. And if you make a new character, you enter a campaign, right? And depending on if you don't know about it, like the Dungeon Master, yeah, then it might be really good. But I think that this kind of skills are more valuable or more interesting if you have a character in D&D than if you play the same character in several campaigns. You have a bunch of friends, right? You can travel through several different campaigns, right, with your character. Then this kind of stuff, like religion, history, whatever, is probably more balanced because a good dungeon master are gonna pick different campaigns, right? They kind of move you around a little more, so to me. But here you have a fixed game, right? Baldur's Gate 3 is a fixed campaign, you know what I mean? And in my experience, at least, playing it a few times now, like religion is almost useless. it's very few times. Persuasion that like noble has is like 10 times better. So yeah, if you play like charisma character, you should probably be like noble or something similar. But persuasion is so much better. It's incredibly much better. It's by far the best. Persuasion and deception, yeah. Persuasion and deception are the two best skills, I think, easily. If you play per phase, then right, yeah, per phase. But anyway, rant there about that. Let's go into multiclassing. But I mean, I think like we're talking about being a class, right? This thing then, yeah, it's like I mean, generally here, noble is very powerful. But okay, so let's go into some specific good triple multiclass, right? I'm gonna start with my favorite then, the one that I have played and the one I mentioned in the multiclass thing, because it is like the most obvious multiclass thing, right? That is, of course, the Rogue Ranger start off, right? So if you have the Rogue, you can play it either way. I really care if you're regular or Rogue or whatever, right? But you want to get to level 3 with both of them, absolutely. And then we can debate exactly what should be highest level there. But Ranger level 3, right? And Rogue level 3. Because you have Thief and Assassin, which you do the Assassin thing for bonus things, right? This is also a little bit questionable, which is the best subclass. But before we go into that, be the Ranger, right? Now you level up Ranger 3. It's much faster using this system than the actual game. And then of course what you want is a Gloomstalker, right? So for Ranger, it's like always a Gloomstalker, right? For the Rogue, Assassin Gloomstalker is the traditional multiclass, right? You also might be Thief sometimes. Thief's better with Fighter, whatever, some other combos there. But obviously Gloomstalker is like the absolute no-brainer, because this gives you the Dread Ambusher, it says down here, which is like, you get bonus for the stealth team, right? And this, of course, is why the Ranger and the Rogue are so incredible, inherent, like, this is the multiclass thing. And I always say that in every video I made, right, with multiclassing is that, yeah, like, if you play the Ranger or Rogue, you have to multiclass. Multiclassing is not something you have to do in the game at all. And some classes, definitely, like Druid, you can play a single Druid the whole game. It's like no problem. I'm not saying that necessarily is Druid the best class. It's like whatever. But basically, like multiclass for Druid, you only have, it might be a few options, right? You know what I mean? Like I talk about like Druid, Barbarian, etc. Right? But like Ranger, especially, and also Rogue, are the two classes that you the most need to like multiclass with. I say they're the weakest I would argue for by in singularity. But yeah, so Gloomstalker is the one, of course, perfectly combines with Assassin. And this is the basic, right? So level 3. And then, of course, thought about it in other videos as well. This is my multi Fighter then. A Fighter level 2 at least, right? Because then you get, what's called, Action Surge, yeah. So, this is the most basic, right? I keep saying, well, this is the most basic multi-class option. This is like the best one arguably the best one in the game. I don't necessarily think this is the best multi-class in the whole game, but it's the one that is the most straightforward. And the way it works, right? I mean, and obviously we could get higher level, but even ignore that for now, yeah. The way it works, right, is that you're playing the Rogue has Assassin, right? So you have the stealth and so on, and you get bonus damage, and you have bonus attacks. So you do so many turns, right? So you enter the fight, and you just you blast them down, right? Why is it for yes, whatever, no editing. But you know what? Yeah, you go in there and you bam, 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 right? And you blast them. Like you take so many turns the first turn, and then you have the Fighter, right? Fighter you can do another turn basically, right? Because you action charge, so you regain your actions, and then of course you can do it again, right? So you can like kill the boss turn 1, right? You know what I mean? It's incredibly powerful, arguably the best class in the whole game. But I keep saying it. The way I look at it is that it's the most straightforward again, right? Most inherently like powerful. And then you can debate like, do you want to go like this, right? This is one version of it. Another version is usually makes a Rogue, right? So you get like Rogue. This thing you can also do. This is actually probably pretty weak, I think, the 5/5 thing. So you can debate a little bit exactly how you do it. You can also be Thief here instead. Thief, Rogue, Fighter. Slightly different. Then you definitely want to be 3 here though. 9% be like that. Then I would say you want to be this thing, right? You want to be, yeah. If you do Thief, then it's probably better being like Fighter. Then you take is it Battle Master, right? Yeah, if I remember correctly, like this build, right? So you have like Battle Master, Fighter. Yeah, so you basically a Fighter shooting range. Yeah, I would say this one is like probably the best if you play Max Fighter. So you have, this gives you so many attacks. Yeah, Battlemaster, Thief, Gloomstalker, if you're filling out the Figther. So it depends a little bit on focus too. Are you like entering from melee, or you still range and so on. Honestly, to me, it's a little bit RP, you know. Like if I'm coming from a ranger standpoint, I don't want to go this spec because it feels weird to me. I'm still the ranger character, yeah. This is more like I'm the melee, you know, melee super assassin. But this is another version, right? So they're kind of similar. I don't really care too much delve into this is the best or whatever, right? But yeah, this is probably, I think, the best option. And you know, we can always talk. Honestly, this video I don't care about exactly the features or whatever, but you want to have the feature that improves your weapon usually, right? Can we pick it here? This, where's feature? The asset charge. That's the best thing. Here is features. Okay, yeah, this video will be like a 3 hours long if I go into this thing. But you get my point. If you're playing the ranging focus, you obviously want better crossbows or better range thing. If you're playing the rogue thing, you go for like dual wielder. One thing I like to do is with my like barbarian builds is I like to pick the weapon that I currently have and pick a lot. So for example, in my latest game with Karlax, she has this like legendary pole master. So then having the feat of pole master is pretty awesome. So you can have the bit feather with this spec. But I would say it's a little more like a barbarian fight spec, whatever. So then you have like, oh, you have to attack you counter them first, it's very powerful. This is probably better with this build though, because it's more like you initialized here, right? So you need that. This one is pretty good, you know, Savage Tracker and so on. Whatever, I won't go into this very. Not into the field. Let's not go into that, Steve. There's another video, I feel. If there's gonna be a video, there's gonna be like one class per video. If you talk about exactly everything. But this is like a general triple multiclass, okay? I know, people say, what is you going to do? This is a general triple multiclass. I don't want to sit here and be like, well, on level 3, I picked this skill, exactly this thing. I just don't care that much, honestly. This video will be so long if I have to go in exactly and think about it. But that's one thing, right? Generally speaking, this is what I mentioned in the video. Of course, the Figther 2 is one of your most basic builds, right? Because, of course, action charge. I keep saying it, but it's always this skill, right, that you can do another turn. So another build then, which is also pretty good for triple classes, we can like stay, you know, relevant, is of course the monk, right? So you have monk Figther, and then you usually want to have like rogue as well then, right? So it's like basically we swapped out the ranger to the monk, right? So again, you go ranger, you should get thief, and then you have, the important here is to get, what is it now? You have Figther 3, no, it's the Figther 5, right? Where's the one you get the goddamn? But here, it is very important now then, that you pick, what's called, Tavern Brawler, right? Where is it? Tavern Brawler, there we go. So, you get here like, so you get like Figther 5, rested monk, usually, this is not like that, right there. So you get the subclass. Then usually, yeah, open hand, of course, yeah, like that. Usually, right? That's the right one, right? Yeah, this is the one where you play like rogue. You can play Shadows too, but if you play the rogue one, I suppose. But it's like a more rogue ranger, so that's coming later. This is probably the best one, I think. This is kind of a classic one, so you get like, you know, Figther, right? Maximum Battle Master. And here the fit is important. Here the fit is very important, right? Like I said earlier, kind of going back what I said, but for this, the fit is very important. You want to have that, of course, Tavern Brawler, so you do more damage, right? And then you usually have open hand, but you can also go the stealth thing with rogues, all right? And then you do this thing, and this is crazy too. But it's very similar, right? This build is very similar to the other build, where you also enter the fight and you do like so much damage immediately, right? The first turn, you burst damage them down, right? I talk about the scale in the game, but I think this game is pretty easy to just enter a boss fight and immediately kill the boss. Yeah. You go in there and like bam, 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 right? You know, it's very, very similar to that. And of course, you can remove the Figther. I wouldn't say this is a weaker class, but you can also do is right. Take the ranger instead, and then here usually want to have, of course, these things. So this is like the assassin monk, right? And then we have Gloomstalker, and then we have assassin here. You get the point, yeah. This is also a pretty good thing, right? Obviously, now we have Shadow Monk, right? Which is like the Assassin Monk. You have the Assassin Rogue, and you have the Gloomstalker. Very similar. this is also another build, right? And all three of them are dexterity builds, so of course this has been very dexterity in the beginning. And you know, you enter this and you do like bam, 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 and everything. You know, you point and everything dies. Yeah, it's these are all very similar. And who's the best one? I still think probably it's the one with the fight is better. I would say, but all of these builds work in this game. All of them work. This one here probably feels the best if you're playing as a monk, right? Starting as a monk. But I would say, in my opinion, my third playthrough as a monk, orc monk of course, half orc monk baby. I think that then, like, not this build, but the other one I showed you, where you go monk into, you know, Tavern Brawler, with the Figther, like the Battle Master Tavern Brawler Figther. That feels the most monkey. So you go in and like bam, 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 bam. Yeah, that feels the most, I think, the most like RP, at least for me, right? So you're gonna like, I do 10 punches in the face, you know, one punch manning it, yeah, that to me feels the most monk. So I would recommend that, the one earlier. But this one here is pretty similar too, though. But anyway, that kind of concludes the, I feel the dexterity methods are good. Of course, you can also combine a little bit differently, but I think these are the ones you care about. Maybe I missed someone out, leave an angry comment below. I was gonna a comment. But I feel, okay, fine. They also have the Bard one. Okay, fine. I guess any comments otherwise, yeah. Whereas I get some angry comments. Of course, you can also combine like this, right? You usually go to 60 here. You get Figther, and you get the Rogue, I would say. This build's also pretty legit, right? Something like this. Usually get higher up the Figther. Yeah, like that, right? So this is also a pretty legit build then, right? So you pick Colors of Swords, or Bard of course, which makes Bard a better fighter, and then you combine it with Fighter 3 and Rogue 3, right? Similar again, here the Bard kind of presses the Rainier, right? And you level 6 is where Bard gets their double attack and so on. So it's kind of like if you're a main Bard team, right? You can also play another version, I guess, where you have less Bard, and you have more Fighter, so you like this build instead. And you also have this version where you have the Fighter 2, right? So you can go like 7 Bard, I guess. But I don't think this is better, no, because you get one more level, right? Then you get subclass, so you usually get Metal Monster, or like a little more elemental if you want to. So it's like sometimes, like I talked about in the other video, right? The Fighter 2 with the whole again search is powerful. But the thing is that Fighter 2 for me, this is more like this build, right? You know, I think Fighter 2 is more important when you're playing the 10-2 build. You know what I mean? Because now you're basically like the Wizard 10 Wizard, 10 Fighter 2, right? Or like Sorc 10 Fighter 2 and so on, yeah. So you're playing this spec, right? Bard 10 in this case then. And then you get the action surge, right? You get the best different fighter. So in here, level 2 in fighter makes more sense. But I think when you're playing a triple class, obviously, you know, you kind of have the more spread out stats, right? You can also play Ranger here, of course. So much. This is what a robot you can do it if you want to. When you play this thing, right? Now it feels more like I need to put 3D at least, and 3D here. So I have 6 levels there, right? And now it's like, well, I might as well put like 3 here. There's like 9 levels. Then I have something else. Yeah, when you play triple class, maybe I'm wrong, but I would say that in every fighter triple class, you probably want to have fighter 3 or higher, right? Or almost every triple class, you want to have 3. I know there's some other weird builds, later with like Cleric 1 and so on, but I think in generally speaking, yeah, if you do triple class with fighter, triple classing it, then you probably want to have fighter 3 or higher instead. But when you do double class, level 2 can be enough. So it's a little bit like that, right? I think especially because some of the level 2 fighter builds, right, they're not built around any of the subclasses. They're built around like the action shot, like Wizard, so that's also the reason why. But anyway, that was kind of the dexterity builds. There's also another one where you have to go like 16, then you go monk, 3 monk, and also usually a fighter then, right? And you go into fighter with fighter. Here, I usually go fighter like this, right? You know, this is also a build, of course, similar to what I talked about. Yeah, I think they kind of covers the dexterity builds. Maybe I missed something. Leave a comment below. Always we do this thing, right? Obviously you forget. I say it every time. Yes, you always get some angry comments, but of course you always miss 1 or 2. I mean, like we talked earlier, it's like over 200 different builds you can make, right? Now, of course, 200 are more terrible. It's not like 20 good ones, but you get my point. Usually it's like you. Okay, so let's do like Barbarian and so on. I think we kind of covered this database. Of course, I missed something, but whatever, right? This is just my colleague's current build, which I like a lot then. So you go, here's level 9 is where you get the Barbarian crit thing. And then I think like level 10 or so on. Definitely doesn't give you enough. Highest level, of course, you get the best feat, whatever. But I think for for many classes, there are certainly some thresholds, right? Like 10, 11, so for Barbarian, they're good. So 9-3 is pretty good. But I would say that if you're gonna go down here, I don't think it necessarily makes the character better. I'm like, I don't necessarily think it makes it very better. But you can definitely play something like this, okay? But this is probably worse. But you wanna go 5 Barbarian then, right? And then you wanna go like Monk, this one build. So you play the Monk like unarmed battle, right? So you have the, which doesn't stack with Barbarian, no. If it's stacked with Barbarian, really good. So it's pretty like that, meh. But I would say you can either play Bard, right? This build. Bard, Barbarian, it's a pretty good stack too. So you go like 3 here, right? And then you like usually like 6 Barbarian, like this thing. 6 straight there, which is pretty okay. Another build. And of course also when you pick your, Bard, I mean obviously, when you pick your Bard, you want to have, one of the 2 fighter ones. Usually you want to have College of Swords, of course. But Valor also playable. Another build, of course, is actually, of course, Druid, right? This actually is pretty cool. So you go Druid, you only need 2 here actually, but you can go like 3 with 3, right? And then you get the bear form. This is kind of the typical, because you already have Barbarian Druid being a good combo, right? And now you're getting the Battle Master. So you obviously getting that, I turn into an animal, I'm raging while I'm an animal, there's a bug in the game, had it before, whatever. So you rage, then you turn into an animal, and then you have the extra health pool, and you have the moves of the animal, and you obviously also have like the, huge amount of attacks because you're also a fighter. You have the action shots, all the crazy stuff. Right? So that's pretty good, but I think this build is like a weird build, right? Definitely is weird, and another version of it, you remove the, so you don't want to have that thing. And obviously I talked about it in another video, right? But this is like a pretty good build actually. So you go like 9 this thing, but you actually have here is the level you need to get like the Druid, the Owlbear. So this is a much better build, I think. So like this, right? Yeah, that's one. That's the one I think is the best one for Druid Barbarian fighter. Yeah, this version. This I'll say is the best one. So you want to have Moon here, of course. Circle of Moon, yeah. So this one here I think is actually pretty legit, like a seriously good build, where you have mostly Druid, right? This is like Owlbear. This is basically Owlbear, Berserking Owlbear actions, right? Yeah, something like that. But this is actually a pretty legit build, okay? This is like a legit build that actually is one of the best builds in the game, right? So yeah, you have the Druids, because there's a massive cut up, or whatever you call it, for Druid. When you get to level 7, that's Owlbear, if I'm not wrong here. And again, then Owlbear is so much better than the previous animals, right? So that's the next animal, that was pretty good. But Owlbear is like massively much better than like the spider, or whatever it is before. Owlbear is like 10 times better than the animal before. And then of course, Barbarian level 3, that gives you the improved, Berserk, Frenzy thing, so that's like the rage thing we want. And of course, it's always fighter 2, right? There's extra charge or whatever, in animal form, out of animal form, whatever, right? So you even as not an animal, right? Like if you use the normal elf, whatever, in this form, you can still do, of course, the frenzy and then action charge again, maneuvering and so on. So that's like badass. So this is very, very powerful. Another one, of course, is the Barbarian Paladin Figther, right? It's like an obvious strength-focused synergy. I don't think this is particularly good, honestly. I don't think so. This is like, I mentioned earlier, primary stat. Yeah, this works, I guess. I don't think it's very good. If I play this, but I've tried it. I don't think it's a super good game. My recommendation would be like 6 Paladin, is the aura, right? And then you have something like this, yeah. So you get like the 2 fighter again, and then you get this thing. So this is my recommendation for this, right? It's all you can play Eldritch Knight. It's pretty interesting with this build because you have War Magic, but you also have the Smite. It's kind of like a double thing. So I don't think you need it that much because you can do enemy attacks anyway. So, but you can, if you really want to do that, you want, right? But I would say that, before Champion has improved critical hits. That's the one you actually want for Berserk, right? Yeah. Well, it depends. Honestly, I kind of like. Okay, yeah, it depends on your build. But do you have the monk one? Have I talked about that one? The monk berserking crit one with fighter, whatever. Yeah. Okay, maybe champion thing. But anyway, he's still kind of the battle master, right? You do the battle master and paladin. You want to have. What is it? Also Vengeance usually, or yeah, the Vengeance one. Or the one where you outbreaker then, yeah, more damage. Maybe I didn't say that one before though, but they have the obvious combo when you're like champion. Much as the run before, sorry about that. You play champion, remove the paladin. This build here, right? You know, yeah, this is like this is the crit build, right? And you can also of course change that right into like the monk build. So you go like this and you add the monk instead, and then you get like some kind of, you know, like oh no, I'm gonna freaking crit everyone, you know. You can do this thing. You can also be, of course, fighter 3 champion with the rogue assassin, and then you just do like yeah, that's also other version. But honestly, I don't think it's super that good. I prefer battle master usually because you get more. It's a little bit my fighter opinion there. Yeah, usually for most of my multi fighters, I play the battle master. Right. So let's go into some of the charismatic builds. So you have the Paladin 2 and the Sorc 10. This is like I call it the Smite spam build. You can also go like Warlock 10. It's pretty fun. Probably somewhat better. But basically, right, this is, of course, then, let's call it multiclassing. So I think this is the one I prefer, right? Because I usually want to feed here. But the important part is when you're playing the Warlock, I think everyone knows this, but when you get the Warlock spells on how to pick in this list here it is. You want to have this thing and improves your blast, of course. This is weird. It's probably bugged there because there's too many. This one, yeah. So the important thing I feel for all the multi-class builds with Warlock, right, is that you want to have the Eldritch improvement, right? So this is basically always for basically every Warlock build I feel, the medical block, is the agonizing blast and the repelling blast, right? Maybe I'm wrong here, but I think that almost every Warlock build that I have played, I always pick these two features, right? This is like always, yeah. This is the pushing one and the range one, yeah. These two are always like my. I feel for like, I don't know, literally every time I make a Warlock, some kind of Warlock spec, it's always this one, you know. It's always this basically, and this does spec in your charisma. So this is kind of like the spec, I would say. So you only need 2 Warlock, right? Then you have 2 Paladin. So now you Smite spamming, right? Yeah, Smite spamming Paladin. And then you have, you know, the Sorceress is kind of like your main thing, right? And again, you want to have either Devotion, Outbreaker, or Vengeance. Usually go Vengeance. And then for Sorcerer, which one? I prefer Wild Magic, right? I like the random stuff. This might be like my personal thing, but I prefer Wild Magic. So this is kind of like one of the better multiclasses, right? And I think that for Warlock multiclassing, unless if you're playing in the main Warlock, you can almost always be level 2, right? This is one specific here, I feel. Paladin 2, Sorc 6. You can also be, for if you want to maybe more focus on tanking, right? The oath thing, and then you want to have, I think definitely the devotion, I would say. You can play this, right? Now it's a little, you know, this is like less damage. This is more tanky. This also feels pretty good. This hopping, and here you can also replace Sorcerer, and you have this build. And you can play Bard instead. So this is also pretty cool if you want to be like a Bard and you want to be lore. So you want to be lore. This is pretty cool, I feel. Like, you don't need more in Warlock. Again, you only need the blast boons in Warlock. So I feel most of the multiclassing for Warlock, I feel is like level 2, yeah. Like very rarely do you want to go into more that, right? Paladin level 6 again, that's the aura spec, right? And especially if you play Devotion, I think the aura is more beneficial, it's a more tanky thing. So this is like the supportive tanky Paladin, right? So now you have auras, you can heal and so on, right? You can do all the healing stuff, so it's very defensive, right? You have the Bard stuff, that gives you a little bit more buffs and so on. It's very supportive, right? And then lastly, you still have the Warlock spam, right? The Warlock pushing spam. This is actually, I think this is one of the better builds in the game, again, right? Because, yeah, you're like a defensive Paladin, and also buffing Paladin, and also you can kill people mostly by the push, right? But also do that, but it also is a charismatic spec though, so you do a lot of damage with the blast as well. But usually, in my opinion, of course, you push them down, right? You know, that's what you're trying to do, right? Mostly, yeah, you're trying to push them down. This actually is probably one of the best multi-class specs. You also have this kind of weird specs, right? So I think that, again, Warlock 2 kind of works with everyone in a way. And then you have this like Wizard Cleric spec, right? You have some other weird, the Cleric Tempest spec and so on. And you can kind of throw in Warlock there. And like I said earlier, right, you can kind of throw in Warlock in most specs. You can remove this thing. You can add a Bard again, right? You can play, let's see. And you play, of course, College of Law, right? This kind of replacing the Cleric. A different option here. You should have Lighter. Or you have Tempest one. And you can kind of, do some different specs here. You can do a little less. Usually 6 is like the level 6 is for Bards to get double thing. So yeah, you want to have at least 6 levels in Bard right in this build. You can do 2 here and so on. Again, I think usually when you think about multiclassing, right? It's kind of my first video. Is that you want to find those thresholds. I keep saying it, right? Like Fighter 2, very good for 2 classes, right? And Fighter 3, either usually with Champion or Battle Master, Battle most times. It's like, that's a good cutoff, right? For Warlock, I really think it's like level 2, right? Yeah, Warlock is a good class multiclassing because you get to level 2 and you really don't need more levels. It's like, you don't really benefit from more levels, Mark already has his subclass and so on. Like, you don't really unlock anything more. Honestly, I think it was a very powerful class, but you don't unlock that much more, honestly. And also for that matter, right? Like I said in my other video, I think Warlock, but then I had my, of course, the coffee lock, right? Which is, of course, 2 Warlock, 10 Sorc, right there. Like I said in that video, Warlock, I think, is one of the best classes in the game to multiclass during leveling. I haven't said earlier, sorry about that, but I think that most multiclass in this game doesn't actually work when you're leveling up, right? Like if you're playing Paladin, you want to get to at least 5 before you start doing a level, but usually 6, right? So you get the aura. But so you want to get to that level, right? If you play Bard, the same thing. It's like 6, right? Fighter is like 5, and Bard is like 5. So it's either like 5 or it's either 5 or 6, right? Usually depending on your class. When you want to start, like going away from your class, if you want a multi-class. So very few classes in this game can multi-class early levels, right? It's gonna make you weaker, definitely. But Warlock, as I said on the video, Warlock is probably like the class, right? Where you can be like, screw it, I'm just gonna go into Warlock. So because Warlock you can easily, like I said here, level 2, and then you can play Sorc, that's the obvious one, the coffee lock. But you could also be, for example, 2 Warlock, thought about right, the Paladin, go to 2 Paladin, so you get a Smite, and now then you can play, for example, then Sorc, or Cleric, or Wizard, or Bard, right? Let's say Bard then, and then play like this, right? You can spec like this, right? Like that, right? And then play Paladin, for example. That's like a way you could play your Bard, right? Sorry, Warlock, Warlock then, Paladin, and Bard, or whatever. But yeah, but get my point. Warlock is probably the easiest class in the game to like say, you know what, I'm just gonna go with something else now. Because it's like you get the blast thing, and then it's like, okay, I got what I needed. Yes, I got what I want, guys. And especially if you then play one of the charismatic classes like Paladin and Bard, right? So this is one of the, I said earlier, but yeah, one of the better combos, right? So it's kind of charismatic builds. Have I covered all the charismatic builds now? I feel I have. Maybe I missed something, but it's, I keep saying it, but you have to give me some lean way here, guys. Maybe I didn't talk about like Paladin 3 and Bard, whatever, but you get the point. Yeah, you can play Bard, Paladin, Sorceress. You can play Bard, Paladin, Warlock. You can play Sorceress, Warlock, and the other one. Yeah, it's like kind of given, right? Let's talk about the Wizard then, right? So you have Wizard. One build, of course, is Necromancer build. Then you need 3. We'll talk about it in other video, but the classic one, right? I think is a 10 Wizard, 2 Fighter, right? To spam crazy of them. You can definitely go down here lower. So you see when I have Fighter 2 for the action surge, but you can, for example, remove 3 levels here, right? And now you can, sorry, wrong button. I didn't mean this class. But now you can throw in, for example, then the Sorcerer, right? But you can also play. We started with the Warlock, so you can play this like this build, right? Yeah, this is like Spellcaster, Eldritch Blast Spam. This is pretty fun. It's a pretty fun build, not super powerful, but pretty fun pushing out. What more can you do? You can have the Cleric one. Usually go for Cleric 2 like that, right? So you get a bit more healing, a bit more defense spec. There is this weird spec, like I mentioned earlier. For example, we have Cleric 1 like that, used to get the Cleric proficiencies in a weird way. And there's another build too, which I know exists in the game sometimes, where you play like Fighter 1. Where's Fighter? Did I fight it already? Why did I fight it here? I'm an idiot. Let's see. This is what I mean. I had to fight it, but I meant you could play like this, right? I meant to play like this. Wizard 8, fighter 2, and then you put this one. Yeah, this build, right? You know, now you have the wizard action shirt, the cleric one, and then you can leave this one. You can also play fighter and also paladin, like this too. This is the Smite spell thing. Kind of similar, right, to the Warlock one. Yeah, this is similar to the Warlock 2 fighter. You know, yeah, quite similar, right? And your wizard. Usually people like, you know, aberration, but I think it's better a lot on the other specs. Yeah, this is kind of hard to get into all the wizard different specs, but you know, necromancy, you play the druid one, aberration, you play the blah blah spells one, the buff one. So yeah, whatever. I won't care too much about stuff. Too much time. I sit for the video will be 10 hours, okay? Kind of similar to that one, right? Another spec, of course, is going like the whole multi-class spellcasters. So you can spec it like this. I prefer Cleric over Warlock then, but you can play a Warlock as well, and also Druid, but I think it's weaker, so you play Cleric. But you can kind of mix this around, right? But I think that you prefer the stronger Wizard, and usually lower levels in Cleric, right? From this standpoint, and then you also have, of course, we can completely remove these things, right? And you have the Cleric, you know, you go some kind of Tempest Cleric thing, right? You have a different this. What I like is the Monk, right? You know, with the unarmed Wisdom thing. So you have the Monk thing, right? Because now you're getting, you know, the Monk bonus of having Wisdom and so on. What you should do now then, you have this build, right? As the mode you have the 2, 10, and 10, 2, right? So depending on how you play it, right? So you have like 2 Monk, 10, well, yeah, depending on if you want to be aggressive or defensive, right? You can also, like, you know, usually you remove 2 levels here. And then, like I said earlier, I think it's worth 1 more level now, right? And now you can remove another level then, so you can have 3 levels now. So like 3, 7, no, actually you probably go 6 Cleric then, yeah, like this. And then you can take, you know, either Fighter, right? So one of versions here, so it's Fighter, you know. So you can have Fighter 2, then you go like this, right? 7, 3, 2. But if you don't have Fighter, you need to have 6 there. Then now you can have the Paladin. This will be interesting actually. Now you can have the subclass Fighter, right? Like this. We can also play, I guess we can also play 2 levels here then. Because you only want the Smite, right? Yeah, a little bit. Because you have defensive, you have the Wisdom. This is like a weird build, but it's some decent. But you also want to have like the Cleric one, and then you can play Bard, I guess, 100%. But preferably you probably play one of the other spec classes, right? But I think it's kind of meh. I'm not a super big fan of the whole like Cleric Monk thing spelling up. What more do we have lastly here in the spec list? I guess the Druid one. I talked about it earlier though. You have the Druid, you have the Berserk, yeah, you have the Berserk Fighter Druid. You have the Druid Monk on stack level with the unarmed, but you can play that one too. But I don't think, I always say this thing, but I don't think the Druid is a very good multi-class, right? You have the Druid Warlock, the Druid Wizard, Necromancer. You have the Druid Barbarian, which is the straightforward one, right? You know, I'm gonna fight you. And then you have the Druid Cleric one, which is like, I'm gonna heal and so on, right? So you can play, there's this one build that I think is pretty decent. So you play Druid, Bard, and then you play Cleric, right? So you get like this is like the very support build, okay? So you wanna have 6 in Bard, Colors of Lore, then you have, and then you have like, you don't need more, it's like this, yeah, like 6, 3, 3. And then you wanna have Land, and then Cleric you wanna have either Life or Light usually. Or Trickery, but I go with Life, right? So now you have like, this is like super, you know, Bard supportive. Yeah, I can do everything, man. I'm College of, you know, Signal of Land. This is like another Druid build, because Druid and Cleric, I think is a terrible combo. Not because this doesn't work, okay? Let me say, Cleric and Druid, you can combine them, right? You get a very supportive character. You get the heals, you get the stuff, right? And if you lower the levels, you get the Bard instead. And you can also, you can have the Wizard, talk about right. You also have the Paladin, I guess, a little more tanky then. And you can also have a little bit, maybe Warlock, Sorc. Yeah, you can have the Sorc to get haste and so on. But I feel like, you know, this is pretty good, but I don't think any of these specs are very useful, because basically it's like, how to say it? Basically, I don't think being a healer in this game is very useful, right? I think that's where I'm coming from more, where I feel like, what if you're playing like the Sorcerer or whatever with the haste, right? That's very powerful, because Let me give another example, right? So FF1, they had haste in that game, in the first Final Fantasy game. And if you attack with your ninja in that game, you do 2 hits, right? Maybe it's 4 even on the highest level. You do like 2 strikes, like slash, right, you know? And then if you haste the character with your white mage, now you're doing 4 attacks, you know? You're doing slash. So haste actually doubles damage. So that game haste is incredibly broken, because it just doubles your damage, right? You do everything twice, basically, if you have enough speed for it. Yeah, it's insanely powerful in that game, right? And in this game here, haste is like one of the best builds, specs, I mean, or whatever, with sorcerers, because, yeah, you get, like, more turns, right? You get more actions. It's a very, very powerful thing. It makes sorcerer a very good class, and then, of course, what you do is to twin cast haste, right, you know? Your sorcerer, you twin cast, right? Like in my latest playthrough, for a bit, one of my characters were like, I was basically playing the coffin lock. Yeah, I had like 2 Warlock and the rest in Sorcerer, like his twin cast and so on. Yeah, it's very, very powerful. That's a very powerful buff, and then you can just keep pushing them up with your blast and so on like that. And it works wonders. But like I said earlier, I don't really see a good necessary point of getting a next class for that. Like I just gonna keep playing, you know, 10-2 or 2-1, whatever. But how much does it give you to be a healer? You know what I mean? I don't think that's the. I'm just like those words. I don't think it's very useful in this game. That's probably what I think more, right? I don't think you really need that like druid cleric combo. I know you can combo druid and cleric, and I agree that it works. I just don't think you need it. You know what I mean? I don't think you need it. Yeah, like I said, the haste wall thing, but that is not like Final Fantasy broken. But it increases your damage, right? Yeah, it's a buffs, and honestly, in most role-playing games, like buffs that makes him do more damage are always used, of course, because they increase DPS. But buffs that's like you take less damage, usually not a problem in most games, right? You know, look at like I don't know, Dragon Quest something. In that game, you have the Oomph spell that doubles your attack power. That spell is like the best spell in the game. You have the double Oomph. Everyone gets Oomph, right? The whole team gets Oomph. That's very, very powerful. But like the barrier spell, I take less damage. That's like useless in the game, because the game whatever. That being said, though, I have beaten Dex 11 on full Draconian, you know, whatever, on this channel and Twitch and so on. And yeah, in that game you actually do need double barrier. It's very, very hard for Draconian. But normally in most games, you know, defensive spells are definitely way less useful. Again, as a side note, Dex 11 is actually a very good game I feel on full Draconian, because the game actually is very, very hard, like literally very hard for Draconian, which means that you as the player actually need to use those, you know, defensive buffs, like reducing the enemy's attack power. It's like one spell that makes the enemy do half damage for physical attacks. Like those spells are actually really good on full Draconian, whereas you insta-die from the bosses, right? But in most games, to be honest here, you don't need to go into a boss and be like, I will weakness on you, and then I buff myself and this thing, and you don't need that, right? It's like super, we call it överkurs in Swedish. It's like, you know, it's too extreme. You don't need to go that far. In this game, it's almost like, again, everyone knows that the haste buff is amazing, yeah, because it increases your damage, right, you know? And also, I guess, it increases your buffs too, because if I haste a healer, she can heal more too as well, so it actually is even better than that. But usually it's just that. So I don't really like this build. I think this build works, right? It's one of the better ones. But I just don't like the whole Druid Cleric combo. I think it's too much, you know. I'd rather have the Cleric going for the Tempest Cleric, right? Or like the Tanky Cleric with the Monk, whatever. I'd rather have the Cleric going more DPS, right? You have the Cleric Paladin. So for example, if we remove Druid here, and we throw in the Paladin, right? Now we're getting more... and then I probably actually will do this thing instead. Is it like that? Yeah, 3, right? College of... But yeah, it's probably better instead, lore. And then you play like this. Or actually, this kind of depending. Are you more a healer, you know? And play auto or not. So it's like, yeah, if you're playing a tanky paladin with both cleric and bard, you probably want to have College of Valor. But if you're playing more like more buffy, College of Lore, right? And then you can play a little bit. You can play light here as well, right? A little bit. You know, stack it with the paladin and so on. So it's kind of like you can alter a little bit depending on what your paladin does, and also if you play like Oathbreaker, you want to have If you play Oathbreaker or Vengeance, right, you can play this and you can play Swordster. You know what I mean? So you have a little options there, right, you know, depending on what your paladin does. This I feel is a much better build, right, than the Druid one. So now I'm more like a tanky paladin with a little more spells and buffs and so on, I can heal and so on. This to me is a much more useful class right in the game. But I do think because the game is fairly too easy, except some fights. And in those fights that I think are hard, usually it's like so many enemies, and then it's usually you want to have the the AoE spells, right? And then or the summoning things, right? That people call action economy. Like one of my favorite specs is the Druid Necromancer, right? So you can spell and summon everything. Yeah, I like that. Right? So there's a lot of stuff going there. But the thing is that the game is kind of weird in a sense because basically, I think the most, I said, most of the hard fights is against a lot of enemies, right? Again, yeah, a lot of EV, a lot of enemies. And the best spells are on the higher levels. So basically, right, if you want to do the most damage against a lot of enemies, you basically just want to be, cleric, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like, that's the thing though. I said it last in the video, right? The thing is that most of the hard fights in the game, multiclassing is probably make you weaker for many classes because some of the best spells are of course on like cleric 10, cleric 12, or whatever, right? Wizard and so on, yeah. Fireballs or whatever, right? So fireball rather. But you have a point. Like fireball is one of the first AoEs. Then you get firewall on level 7, right? Yeah, that's like a really good AoE spell. And the cleric, she gets of course Guardian Angel, right? Oh, level 7, right? Yeah. So on, it's a very good AoE spell. Then you get Holy Fire and so on, right? So these spells are really the bread and butter for most of the really hard, like massive amount of enemies, fights. And yeah, I think I come back to that again, that I feel that many of the spellcasters, they don't always benefit too much from like multiclassing. I'm not saying you should multiclass them. I showed you a couple of bits here, right, that are good with multiclassing. But I think that many, if I use something random, okay, like, I don't know, I have some random crap in here. Cleric, Barbarian, this is utter crap, you know what I mean? this is terrible, yeah. This is really terrible, right? So I'm not saying that, for example, I showed you, like Cleric, Cleric, Paladin, Brawler, that works. But like this thing, right, Cleric, Barbarian, I don't know, let's take like Rainier, okay, this is really terrible. Yeah, well, you get a point, this is like completely unplayable, yeah. Like Cleric, Barbarian, Rainier, yeah, you know what I mean? This is like utter trash, yeah. This is like 0 out of 10 build, right? So I'm not saying that you should multiclass. I prefer multiclassing. It's funnier, especially a second playthrough. Like you probably beat the game once now, right? You might play a second playthrough, and then you probably prefer maybe take some other companions, some classes, right? Like in my first playthrough, I didn't want to do too much multiclassing. It's like I'm RPing, whereas rather for me, it's like I don't want to multiclass who I am, who I am. I'd rather multiclass the companions, you know what I mean? Like, they can do something else. Yeah, I am me, little more like that, right? Perhaps. But, multiclassing it's not bad in the game, but it's like, you have to have the correct build strat, yeah, because this thing here is just utter terrible, right? And here, clearly, you're getting terrible bonuses from being Rainier and Barbarian, and you're missing out, right, on your your best spells, right? But I said it in the other video too, but I just want to point that out here in the end of the video, that clearly most of those like 200 options are terrible. Yeah, these are terrible. And this one I showed you now are the one that works, right? I probably missed someone because I kind of is going across them in my head here. I probably missed a few of them, but whatever. But honestly, that's the thing. Yeah, you have like 20 ones that are good, right? You have 200 terribles. And then you probably have like 10 or more so that are also pretty good. Or like out of the 200 ones, it's like 5 of them are also very powerful. But it's just like, it's easy for me to remember all of them. And that being said, I haven't tested it all, right? No problem with that. I showed you earlier that my game keeps crashing. So in my latest playthrough, I can't even test them all. I'm trying to test a new build that I'm doing with one of my characters, and the game keeps crashing. So... but honestly, right, that is, I keep saying it, that is of course, my only real concern with this game is that Act 3 is really laggy, and Honestly, a little bit, I have to say. I hope you guys like the video. Please subscribe, press the like button, because when I started doing this video for this recording, right, and then my game crashed immediately, like yesterday, I had to say I felt like, oh guys, I don't do it anymore. I had to say I felt a little bit like, why am I doing this video for? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, or more like, I'm tired of this game, you know? I was like, oh god, Baldur's Gate 3, and it crashed again. Like yesterday I lost, I said 3 save files. I was like, I thought, yes. Yes, like, that lost a little bit of my motivation, honestly, right? Not because I don't like making videos or, talking about math or whatever, right, in the beginning of the video, but just because like this game, a little bit, tasting that, I was like, oh, god damn it. But hopefully the game works again now, after I reinstall it during this recording here. That's why I'm recording this, guys, because during my mumbling here, I had the game being reinstalled, right? So hopefully it works now when I get back into the video. But anyway, please subscribe, press the like button, and tomorrow then we are doing mostly, I guess not anime, but tomorrow we go to have One Piece live action, right? We got Red Yushan, we got Bohang, but we got One Piece live action, and obviously I have to react to that, whatever, right? And I am really wondering if it's gonna be utter trash or not, because everyone and their mother is like, it's the greatest thing ever since sliced bread, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna be trash, right? And I'm also a bit negative, but I have seen nothing so far that actually makes me trust them, both from who the directors are and the previous work, which is Cowboy Bebop, which is like the utter trash, like Seattle show, and generally Netflix live action are terrible. So we see tomorrow, guys, because of course I will give you an honest review, right, on the live action stuff. Because I bet you that 9 out of 10 YouTubers, whatever, right, are gonna tell you that it's the best thing ever, and the other 10% will tell you it's the worst thing ever, right? Because these wanna be like contrarians. But I will tell you an actual honest opinion, which probably means that I will tell you it's mid. I'll be like, I like 5 out of 10. Yeah, it's not the worst thing ever. It's not the best thing ever. It's just okay. That's probably where I will end up being like, yeah, it's mid. Yeah, it's actually really mid, guys. But I guess you guys have a great day.